You're listening to the Quint's podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Quint's first Twitter Spaces event and also our first live episode for the Big Story podcast, a daily news show where we take a deep dive into the biggest headline of the day. I'm your host, Himmat Shaligram. Life to a large extent was coming back to some level of normalcy in India after the country witnessed a deadly second wave earlier this year. But with a new variant of concern, COVID-19, Omicron being reported all around the world last week and now also in India, everyone is sitting up in their chair to inquire about what the deal is with this variant. The first two cases of Omicron in India were detected on 2nd December. Both these cases were detected in Karnataka and both patients have recovered from the virus. So now that Omicron is in India, how concerned should you be? And more importantly, how prepared is India? To discuss this, I'm joined today by epidemiologist and health systems expert Dr. Chandrakant Lahariya. Dr. Lahariya, thank you so much for your time today for the big story.
Thank you very much, Himmat, and hello everyone.
There are now a growing number of countries around the world that are reporting Omicron cases from the US, Canada, Netherlands, Hong Kong, and of course South Africa as well, where it was first detected. It was designated as a variant of concern by the World Health Organization on 26 November. And the big headline coming out of this is that it is the most mutated version of COVID. Now, coming to the first two cases in India, what we know so far is that the new variant was detected in two fully vaccinated individuals from Karnataka, age 66 and 46. What perhaps is reassuring is that both these cases showed mild symptoms only. So, Dr. Laria, my question is there something to worry about or are we headed towards the endemic stage? If you could tell us where this variant stands at the moment compared to other variants and also our vaccine responses.
Thanks, Himmat. So one of the key questions which people say that majority of people who are being found positive with new variant Omicron are fully vaccinated or partially vaccinated. But there is a fallacy which in the epidemiology or medical science we call ascertainment bias or confounder. The fact is that majority of the people who are being tested for Omicron are travelers. And as a traveler, the prerequisite is that people should be vaccinated. So if you are searching in the people who are vaccinated, you will find in the vaccinated people. And that is the reason that we are hearing that majority are vaccinated. But that may not be entirely true. Having said that, besides the international travelers, it is true that the variant has been found which has multiple mutation more than any previous variant. 10 are in those sections of the spike protein of SARS-CoV-2, which may have some impact on immune escape, transmissibility, or also disease outcome. And how we know about that? Because some of these mutations had been found in alpha, beta, lambda, and even delta variants. And this is rightfully because these mutations have been found independently, and when something is unknown, it is right thing to be cautious. And World Health Organization designated as variant of concern in the right approach. But how worried we should be, or how much we should, there are few things since then. In the last 7 days, we have learned the new mutations in reality. The number of cases found are really high, but we also need to examine the number of cases and often cited graph which say that while most of the other variant took around 90 or 70 to 90 days to become dominant variant, this Omicron become within 10 days, the 90% cases were reported. This might be true, but we need to remember that the number of cases which are reflecting this 90% of the total cases are really less. Around 100 genomic sequencing were done at that time. For other variant, it was a really big number. So that's not exactly comparable, but reason enough to be prepared. Final point is that what we know in the last 7 days, we have learned that it caused mild disease. It does not, as of now, cause severe disease. We are not sure whether there will be immune escape or not because simply finding in vaccinated individual is not a parameter. Vaccines are not 100% effective. There are breakthrough infections. And third part is whether the available treatment works like monoclonal antibodies. That answer will also take some time because monoclonal antibodies are given to only those people who are seriously ill, and such cases are not there. So something had not been tried. So many unknown. To summarize this first part of answer, I think in the end, it might turn up that there are few characteristics, but as of now, it's not a concern. It's not a concern to be worried something. It's a concern, but not worried something. And maybe I'll come back on some other parts on this later.
Okay. Now, as of right now, as you also said earlier, that all the samples which are being tested for this variant are from incoming international passengers, and these samples are being sent for genome testing, which does take a fair bit of time. Like I think around 24 to 96 hours is what is when the report comes in. And from what we know, also, and we're reading in the news, is that several states in India and the center has also announced new travel guidelines with like new strict rules of post-arrival testing and home quarantine as well for 7 days and a test on the eighth day, I think. So, what do you think of India's current strategy towards curbing this virus? Like, what should be our primary focus so we don't land back in a situation like the second wave that led to that high number of fatalities owing to mismanagement and also unpreparedness?
So, as far as cases in vaccinated is concerned, I believe one of the confirmed case of Omicron in India had no travel history, but majority are the people who are being tested have a travel history and other setting. Coming to the second part of how India's response is, I think there is, like, in my opinion, while some of the things are really good, but a little exaggerated response has been given by majority of the countries except South Africa. We need to remember that it's a South Africa which is reporting majority of the cases, and still we are not hearing the kind of chaos or panic, or hospitals are not overburdened. But rest of the countries, by putting either complete travel ban on South Africa, other countries, or it's more of a more like a reactive response. India's response so far, in I would say, is balanced as far as government response is concerned, except some state chief minister saying that a travel ban should be put. I think so. It's a mix of everything, but all the things. But I want to bring three, four things in the mind, and that's what would give us some perspective to the listeners also. What we need to remember that December 2021 is very different from March 2020, but we are seeing some same kind of response. Like, if some of you recall that what was happening in March, 2nd March, when second round of first cases, like initial three cases were on January, but actually cases started on 2nd March onward, and then everybody was in a panic and counting the cases, and where which state has reported two cases, which state has reported one case. And that was the right approach for that point of time, because this was a new virus. We had no understanding and count doing that, but something similar is happening at the low little smaller scale, but that is not the right approach in my opinion. It's not right approach because three, four things have changed in the last 21 months. One thing which has changed is, like, first thing is that that time it was new virus. Now in 21 months, we know far better about virus disease. Second, a series, like, when pandemic started, it was everyone was susceptible, but since then, number series of waves have happened, and people have developed infection, so they are protected. Third, the vaccination is happening, so even if people have received one vaccine, they are a bit protected. So all of these things means India or a world of 20 December 2021 is not the same. So our response should also be the same. But I think one of the group of people who keeps talking about, who say that since we do not know about the virus, so we will know in 3 months, and that's why we should be worried. I think that is a wrong approach. The reason is that if we start saying that, okay, we don't know, this is a new variant, this is a new variant, but not new virus, and variant means some different characteristic. If we start saying that for every new variant, then like entire lifetime will go into saying that, okay, this is a new variant, so wait for 3 months. So, to summarize this second answer also, I would say that some of the balanced approach is there. India is definitely better prepared. What should be done? The response from the government side should be commensurate to the challenge, and it should utilize the scientific evidence. We should not jump to the similar kind of approach which we had in March 2020.
Okay. Now you spoke about this being a new variant basically, and I want to know, is there a different way or a faster way to test if a person has been infected with this variant, sorry. Since it is going to take a long time for that genome sequencing report to also come in. I understand that there is a particular science behind the detection of this variant in an RT-PCR test, which may help detect this variant early on as well, a bit faster than a genome sequence report. Can you tell us what that is and how it exactly works?
So what we are hearing is the S gene dropout, and let's understand this thing. So this is on what we are hearing, that in RT-PCR there is a S gene dropout, which essentially means one particular section which otherwise should be visible is noticed on the RT-PCR is not noticed in this one, which is being taken as a proxy indicator of that this could be Omicron variant. Now, we are still hearing that this we know that this is the existing RT-PCR still can detect the Omicron. Reason is that the RT-PCR kits are made broad based, so they are designed to identify more than one sections of the spike proteins of the virus, the N terminal and E section gene. So they usually most of the kit have a three are supposed to identify three sections, three subcomponents, and one of the component is missing, and that's why on RT-PCR if that section is missing, the scientists or the laboratories say that okay, this could be Omicron, but so that is working as a proxy indicator of Omicron variant in the RT-PCR. And then if you send those one for genomic sequencing, it has been found that it almost come out Omicron. But there is a catch here. The catch is that this approach, S gene dropout, is not applicable for all the countries because in RT-PCR, different countries use different kits. So fortunately, or in a way, South Africa has been using the kind of kit which can pick S gene dropout. But the same approach cannot be followed in India. There is no number available in public domain, but the Indian RT-PCR do not use that similar kit in general. So there might be a proportion. I don't know the number. Probably nobody knows because they have not put counting that way. But maybe 5%, 3% of RT-PCR kits, one particular brand, being used in those facilities, they can pick up. So India cannot pick up. Indian laboratories cannot pick up as gene dropout, as far as my understanding concerned. So you cannot prioritize those samples. So you have to send all the samples which you suspect for genomic sequencing. And now we know genomic sequencing takes at least 24 hours in best case scenario, and actually 72 to 96 hours. So that takes time. But to again summarize this one, good part RT-PCR can still pick up, which is meaning that this is still being detected by available tests. So it's not bypassing that. But in India, that is not applicable. S gene dropout is only for some countries, and that's why South Africa is picking far quicker the cases because they pick a CS gene dropout, send those proxies to genomic sequencing. India not, or other countries are not.
Okay, so that is quite a big concern as well because that if India is unable to have those tests as well, so we are going to take a long time to detect uh, Omicron cases basically in India. At present, the current fully vaccinated rate in India is hovering around 49%. And we are, of course, a long, long way from fully vaccinating our population. So, Dr. Lahariya, does this mean for a highly infectious so what does this mean? I meant to say, for a highly infectious variant like Omicron, can we be more at risk right now because our entire population, or not even half, is vaccinated?
So let's break this into two parts. One is that vaccination is definitely a requirement to prevent the spread of prevent the pandemic, stop the pandemic. But we should also be mindful that vaccination is a disease modifying, which essentially means that it can prevent the severe form of disease, but it does not stop transmission or infection. So a vaccinated individual can still get infected. So vaccination of 100% of population will also not halt the transmission of virus, which can be done only by the face mask, physical distancing, other measures. So that is independent one, and that's why it's important that while we keep focusing, we should not unnecessarily link vaccination to Omicron variant. We require vaccination, but that's unlinked to Omicron. We need face mask, other things. Coming to the second part, yes, of course, India, we need to increase vaccination because if people get infected, then those who are unvaccinated are the highest risk of developing disease, whatever form of disease it is. Those who have one shot are little better protected. Those who have both shots are definitely fully protected in this context. And fully protected does not mean 100% guarantee. Fully protected means 80%, 90%. So that's why vaccination is required. It need to be accelerated. I think, but we need to be mindful that it picked up little later in July and August, so there is delay. And I am also hopeful that with this variant emerging, rather this entire worry and concern should translate, if at all, it should translate into increased vaccination coverage and people turning up for vaccination centers to the vaccination centers.
I also wanted to speak regarding vaccinations for children now. So it hasn't started in India, But there are some concerning early reports from South Africa which suggest that Omicron may pose a higher risk for children, especially infants. Now, if that is the case, do you think we should have started vaccinating children in India sooner? And should we be accelerating vaccines for kids also now? With we have vaccines where Covaxin has been approved and also Zydus Catalá has been approved. So should we be accelerating vaccines for kids now?
So, what we are seeing now is also a challenge in throughout the pandemic period, that people have used an available data and evidence in isolation, while what is required that we should be looking holistic evidence. So, we every single time wherever there are cases or any discussion, we have heard isolated cases, that cases are in children are rising in Brazil. Then we heard about Indonesia, Singapore, and unfortunately very few people go in depth. So isolated reports are of limited relevance. We should always read evidence along with the existing evidence plus new evidence, and that's what is not happening. So while one side we are hearing that there is not enough evidence to arrive on any conclusion, how can one arrive on conclusion for children which numbers are really small? So any conclusion is too early, no matter who is making that, other than based upon the previous issue. So, in my opinion, for the conclusion of children, there are some reports in younger children, but newspaper reports cannot be fully discussion point. They try to be scientific one. Coming to the vaccination part, I believe, and that's what another thing is, that if we know that this is a fourth variant of a fifth variant of concern, there have been variants alpha, beta, gamma, and delta from the original one. What we know that while all the variants like had a different characteristic, but the age distribution of the cases due to variant did not alter. What I'm saying that if the original variant was affecting elderly, the subsequent variant also affected elderly. So children were not affected by any of the variant differently. They were affected in the same proportion at low rate. So there is no reason to believe that this would work any differently unless evidence prove otherwise. So that's one. Why children are not being vaccinated, that is also widely known. We know this variant is emerging from a population and setting where there is low vaccination coverage in adult population. And so the priority, if world want to stop, is priority should be those higher at risk and which where it will benefit more. These vaccines prevent from severe illness, hospitalization, and death, and which are already low in children. So, if something which is low in children and vaccines prevent from them, so the benefit of vaccination is not there. Having said this, does not mean that children would never need vaccine. Children would need vaccine. As an example, if there is a vaccine, nasal vaccine, which can help in reducing transmission, they would need. Similarly, children who are at higher risk, who are at higher risk of more severe disease mortality, they should be vaccinated, and that's a process. But even the children at a higher risk are far lower risk than the adults of the severe COVID-19 outcome. So it's this argument is not sufficient argument to use for vaccination of children, but that itself alone should be discussed, and I believe that will be taken forward.
Okay. Now, sir, I want to ask, given how transmissible this variant is, should the government now consider reducing the dosage gap for Covishield to accelerate the vaccine coverage? Right now, we have a 12-week dosage gap, which has also, in some cases, prevented people from taking the second dose, I meant. And if not the reduction in Covishield dosage gap, should our approach towards booster doses change now?
So first of all, we really do not know. Like there are indications that this is more transmissible. But that's not confirmed yet. But considering vaccines do not reduce transmission risk of transmission, or like they might reduce very little, but their role is mainly in disease. So higher transmissible variant might not be reason enough to alter the vaccination dose interval for a particular vaccine. That's one. So, and the other thing is that scientifically, this is proven that the longer gap is better, at least 12 weeks gap is better, so it should be continued. But more important for India is that it's not the vaccination dose interval, people are not coming to facility. We know that people who have completed even 12 weeks are not returning. 12 crore people from India have not returned for their vaccination. So the dose interval is not a factor as of now, uh, and it should be scientifically continued. Scientific approach need to be followed to decide on that, not this variant. Coming to the booster part, again the same point. The 2 shots of vaccines provide sufficient protection, and that's a public health benefit. Beyond that, giving third dose might provide some individual protection. Some countries are using that approach. Uh, there is insufficient evidence, and especially for India. Now, let me come to the India, that why it is like really difficult for India to start booster shot. So the evidence is that a booster dose should be given of a vaccine which is different, which is on a different platform than the or different vaccine than originally used for primary immunization schedule, and that's what majority of the countries are doing. They are giving a booster of a different platform vaccine. As an example, UK is the other large country which is using same Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine which India is using as Covishield. Now, UK has made a decision to introduce booster, but they are giving booster of mRNA-based vaccine, Moderna or Pfizer. They are not giving Covishield booster. The reason is that there is not insufficient data from Indian Covishield, like this Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, and even if you give a homologous booster, or instead of that, you give a heterologous booster, the amount of antibody is higher. So, if you at all you want to give booster, you want to give a booster of different vaccine, and that's another dimension. Third thing is that we need to remember that UK, others, USA had started vaccination much before India. Like India's vaccination drive accelerated actually in July, August. So many of the people are completing their immunization like 2 shots recently. So there is a long gap to go before booster should be considered. And the final part is that if we go for a booster, there is a real risk that the attention from the core priority, which is administering first and second shot, will be diverted. And most important, this in this fight against pandemic, world need to be together. And if we every country start thinking of their own and do not share vaccine, we will see 7% of Africa's population is fully vaccinated by 75% in some countries, and then variant would keep emerging. So the race for giving booster will actually detriment and will not help anyone. You will have to keep giving boosters, and but if we give two primary shot, the need for booster at least can be delayed or can be reduced.
Okay. Well, sir, that was the end of my questions. But thank you so much, Dr. Lahariya, for your time today to help us understand Omicron better. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much.
And folks, that's the end of our episode. If you like listening to this episode, please subscribe to the Big Story podcast. We are available on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, JioSaavn, and most of the other popular podcast streaming platforms. You can also catch all our other podcast series as well, like Urdunama, Kisme Kahaniya, Land of a Billion, and Where Were You When, on all these platforms and the Quint website. We're also launching a host of new series which will be dropping next year, so stay tuned for that. And that's it for today. Have a great weekend ahead and a great Friday today. If you liked listening to this episode, please subscribe to The Big Story for episodic updates. We're available on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, JioSaavn, and most of the other popular podcast streaming platforms. For other podcasts, please log on to the Quint website, and for any feedback, please shoot an email to podcast@thequint.com.
Thanks for listening. Log on to the Quint website and check out our other podcasts.